exciting and engaging and educating and empowering program for you today. This group of ladies are some of the visionaries of our time, of our era, because they have broke boundaries and they have created an all-female mariachi band.
I'm Marilyn Fowler. I founded the Women's Intercultural Network with a group of women from many cultures. There were no other organizations that brought women together across cultures. I felt that we were missing an opportunity to really build a powerful organization that represented women from all cultures, all races, all economic abilities, and that organization became known as Women's Intercultural Network. And we have sustained ourselves for 20 years, traveled 500,000 miles around the world, and created circles of women that we have in Afghanistan, Uganda, Japan, Latin America, and our newest circle that we're very excited about is ICWIN, the Iranian Women's Circle. And that circle was actually brought together by Elahe Amani, who has been global chair of WIN for many, many years.
Let's give them a warm welcome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So, on behalf of the Iranian Circle of Women's Intercultural Network, ICWIN, I am Sheila Vosur-Omi, and it is my pleasure and my great honor to be your MC today. I'm an actor, director, humanitarian. Some of you may know me from the plays that we've been doing in the Persian language, and I also MC a lot of charities. I studied biological anthropology at UCLA, and I've written a thesis on parental investment of vervet monkeys. But enough about me. As you all know, International Women's Day is celebrated on March 8th all over the world. It is a global day celebrating the economic, political, and social achievements of women in the past, present, and future. There's a quote by Al-Anon that says, "Life shrinks or expands in proportion to one's courage." And the fact is that International Women's Day actually started in the early 1900s, that's more than a century ago, when a group of courageous women took to the streets and they demanded better working conditions, peace, and bread. We've come a long way since those women made those requests, but we have yet to finish their demands. International Women's Day was celebrated for the first time by the United Nations in 1975. Then in December of 1977, the General Assembly adopted a resolution proclaiming the United Nations Day for Women's Rights and International Peace to be observed on any day of the year by member states in accordance with their historic and national traditions. Every year, the UN Council sets a theme for International Women's Day. This year, the organizers of IWD are asking supporters to pledge for parity, to take a concrete step to help achieve gender parity more quickly, whether to help girls achieve their ambitions, call for gender-balanced leadership, end workplace bias, or develop a more inclusive culture. So here to speak to us, our first speaker is going to be Miss Elahe Amani. Thank you. Thank you so much. She's a peace, gender equality, and human rights activist. Elahe has been with Women's Intercultural Network since 1995 in the capacity of board chairwoman, and currently she is the chair of the global circles and among one of the 6 Iranian American women who formed ICWIN's steering committee. Please welcome Miss Elahe Amani.
Good afternoon and salam wa khosh amad. International Women's Day, March 8, is a global day celebrating the social, economic, cultural, and political achievements of women. The day also marks a call for action to accelerate gender parity. International Women's Day has been observed since in the early of 1900, a time of great expansion and turbulence in the industrialized world that saw booming population growth and the rise of radical ideologies. International Women's Day is a collective action of global celebration and a call for gender parity. No one government, NGO, charity, corporation, academic institution, women's network, or media hub is solely responsible for International Women's Day. Many organizations declare an annual IWD theme that supports their specific agenda or cause, and more of these are adopted more widely with relevance than others. The story of women's struggle for equality belongs to no single feminist, nor to any one organization, but to the collective efforts of all who care about human rights. International Women's Day is all about celebration, reflection, advocacy, and action. But one thing is for sure, International Women's Day has been occurring for more than a century and is growing annually from strength to strength. Women Intercultural Network, or WIN, was established in 1995 by visionaries such as Marilyn Fowler, president of Women Intercultural Network, and Irene Hernandez, second president of National Organization of Women, and appointed by Lyndon Johnson in 1964 as the only woman to serve on the newly established Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. WIN is a 501c3 non-governmental organization with consultative status to the UN Economic and Social Council. WIN is not an organization that networks, but it's a network that organizes. WIN mission is to assure that the voices of all women and girls are heard in public forums for full participation in their government and economies, and expand the circle of women and girls' leadership for collective action. WIN calls for circles of women from all communities to collaborate and cooperate with our mission, as well as bringing their community's unique need and advocacy to the table. We are inspired to build bridges of solidarity and encourage the collective voice of women in United States and beyond. ICWIN initiative of CEDAW resolution in city of Long Beach was a step forward, bringing the global agenda of Planet 5050 to local and take a stand in support of the Bill of Rights for Women and Girls. Also, for the first time, I'm pleased to share this, for the first time, a delegation of 8 Iranian American women from Southern California, organized by ICWIN, will be attending this month on the occasion of 60th anniversary of UN Commission on the Status of Women. We will have a delegation at this commission. So it is my pleasure to invite Marilyn Fowler, founder, president, and CEO of Women's Intercultural Network, to come to the stage so that we recognize her tireless efforts for the cause of gender equality. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing the microphone. That's what we're all about. And I want to accept this great honor to speak to you on behalf of the Women's Intercultural Network. WIN is our acronym. Our partners all over the world. We have women following us today in Afghanistan, Uganda, Japan, Guatemala, and we're so excited to welcome the Iranian Women's Circle. And I would like for you to stand, members of the Iranian Women's Circle, please, and stay there a minute, because we are going to the UN in 1 week. We will be heading into New York City, and they will be carrying your voice into the UN Commission on Women. That commission is made up of 35 countries, and they decide the plan, what we call the outcome documents. We will be looking at those documents. While we're there, we will be critiquing them, and these are your representatives going. So you might want to let them know ahead of time. We will be sending out that document early this week. You will all be able to see. And I have to say that in the years that I have been going to the UN, taking delegates since 1995, because we now have a UN Women's Office, official office, with an assistant secretary director at the head of that office, I have seen change at the UN. We have much more voice. The non-governmental organizations have a voice. You have a voice at the UN. And we welcome any of your critiques, any of your comments. And I am what I call migrating south next month. I first was in San Diego many years. I've been in San Francisco many years. I'm coming south next month and moving back down to this area. So, so I won't say anything else because I will be here and I'll be able to talk to all of you later this summer. Thank you for coming and join us. We want as many of you as WIN members to make sure we get you on all our action lists because we are proactive. We do more than talk. Thank you so much.
We have a Khatam frame with ICWIN logo on it for Marilyn. Thank you very much.
You know, the most common way that people give up their power is by thinking that they don't have any. So thank you so much, Marilyn, for everything that you've done for women to remind us that we have power. An incredible woman who is a television writer and producer named Shonda Rhimes. She once said that you can waste your life drawing lines, or you can spend your life crossing them. And Shonda Rhimes is an African-American woman, and she has, I think, 4 amazing shows on television running right now that she's created, Grey's Anatomy and Scandal and Private Practice, and I know there's a couple more that I can't think of at the moment. The reason I bring her up is because we've been hearing a lot about the challenges within the entertainment industry for women as well as women of color. And we're going to hear about the journey of an artist who is among us. And this artist is one of those fantastic women that has been crossing lines instead of allowing those lines drawn for her to stop her. Her name is Nasim Pedrad. Thank you. She's an Iranian-American comedian and actress. She's best known for her work on Saturday Night Live and Fox's new breakout series, Scream Queens. I know she had done a fabulous one-woman show called Me, Myself, and Iran that she did at UCB, Upright Citizens Brigade, some time ago. And right now she is the writer of a new show. It's a half-hour comedy that's coming out on Fox called Chad. So she is going to be joined by her lovely aunt, Miss Nazanin Amani. for a discussion. Ms. Nazanin Amani is a children, women, human rights, and environmental protection advocate. She is currently the outreach coordinator for the IPAA, that's Iranian Persian American Association of Greater Long Beach, and as I mentioned, Nasim's aunt. Please welcome our guests to the stage. Oh, yes, you do need the mic. So here's one, and here's two. Make sure it's turned on. Yes, it is.
Hi, everyone. Oh, it's loud.
Hello, Nasim.
Hi.
Oh my God. She just landed, and she was in...
From an airplane.
From airplane, yes. Yes. So we have to make you laugh a little bit, too. So, okay, Nasim, tell us a bit about yourself.
Hi, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Nasim. I am a comedian, writer, actress. I grew up here in Long Beach and then in Irvine, California, and studied theater at UCLA and kind of pursued comedy in the entertainment industry. I did Saturday Night Live, and now I'm creating my own TV show, but I've been very fortunate to be able to kind of have a career in a very competitive industry.
Okay, so this is a question that we as Iranian American parents, I'm going to ask you. So what inspired you to become interested in this profession? We know typical Iranian American, they all want their kids to be doctor or engineers. So how did you come about to be an actress?
I think growing up being sort of caught between two cultures, I was Iranian and, definitely that part of my life was such a big part of my identity, but I was growing up, with a bunch of white kids in Irvine. I think as any teenager, a lot of times all you want to do is to fit in. And for me, I felt like my way of trying to fit in was to make other kids laugh. Because a lot of times growing up, I was too young to really understand how special and awesome it was to be part of this other culture. I think a lot of kids just want to be as American as possible, and they don't want to feel different when they're growing up, especially in elementary school and junior high. So that was like a big way for me to sort of find my way at school, was to make other kids laugh. And then as I began doing that, I realized how much I loved that, and I thought, well, why can't I pursue that? And I don't want to embarrass you, but you have a lot to do with this, because
I was hoping you don't say that.
she is like truly one of the funniest people. She happens to be a family member, but growing up, I would always watch my aunt Nazanin make our relatives laugh, and there was something so contagious about that. It was like a drug that I wanted to chase. I was like, this is the best, I need to do that. And I would just sit and observe you, and no matter what was going on, you could disarm and diffuse any moment by making a joke or doing an impression of a family member. And that had a lot to do with me wanting to actually pursue that, honestly. So I would say those two things, wanting to fit in school and then you, had a lot to do with me wanting to pursue comedy. And to my parents' credit, as immigrants, I can't imagine anything scarier than giving up so much, coming to a new country, and then having both of your daughters tell them that they want to pursue comedy. I can't think of anything more terrifying than that. But to my parents' credit, I'm sure they there was a lot of reservation involved, but honestly, they never discouraged my sister and I from pursuing that. And I'm so proud and honored to say that because it worked out for us, and it doesn't for everybody, but at the end of the day, they did always tell us, you have to follow your heart. And that's not an easy thing to always say when your daughter's heart is after something that's very unpredictable. And my younger sister now is, a very successful, also comedy writer and producer. She writes and produces on the show New Girl on Fox. So we both somehow ended up in this industry, and luckily we had a lot of support along the way.
Yes, thank you. You shouldn't have said all the things you said about me.
It's
so,
true.
What are some of the challenges you have faced as an Iranian American actress?
That's an interesting question. What are some of the challenges I faced? When I graduated from theater school in, this will date myself, but 2003, it was a really different time. So much has changed just in the last decade for women and women that come from different cultural backgrounds. It's been really exciting to watch that evolution. When I first graduated from theater school and I began auditioning, there weren't even a lot of parts for, women who weren't like Caucasian. A lot of the parts specifically would ask for Caucasian women, and little by little, I noticed that starting to change. But when I started, all of the auditions I went to, like if it was for a Middle Eastern girl, even sometimes every once in a while, there would be maybe a part for an Iranian girl. I would see the other girls at the audition, and there were very few Middle Eastern actresses. Even at the time, it was myself and this wonderful actress, Nazanin Bonyadi, who I'm friends with till this day. We would see each other at these auditions, and it's so wonderful to see how much has changed in the last 10 years. There are so many more women from a variety of backgrounds pursuing the arts, and there are more parts being written. A lot of the parts that I got early on in my career were initially intended to be played by an American, Caucasian actress, and I would audition and was lucky enough that the producers thought, well, there's no reason she can't be Persian. It's not imperative in the script that she is of a certain race. So I noticed things changing a lot more. I think we still have a long ways to go, but it's exciting that we live at a time where there is a network sitcom about an Asian American family. Fresh Off the Boat is a show I don't think could have existed 10 years ago. Or, a sitcom, Blackish, representing the African American community. And I hope to do the same with my show because, they say write what you know, and all I know is what it is to be an Iranian American. So that's my truth, and that's the most honest thing I can do. Hopefully it works out, yeah.
Great. So on the next question, you may elaborate about your new project that we are also excited for you. So the question is, what value you can bring into your work as an Iranian American actress to facilitate a better understanding of our culture?
Sure. So for those of you not too familiar with sort of how the entertainment industry works maybe, basically I was given what's called a development deal with Fox. They said, we will pay you to write a script and develop your own show to star in. All that means is I was given the opportunity to write something. This year, there were like 40 other people also given that same opportunity. And of those 40 scripts that are written, mine was one of them, they pick 7. Okay, so mine is one of the 7 right now. Wow. And thanks. I didn't mean. And of those 7, you write the first episode, so I turned in the script, and they picked it as one of the 7. And they're going to shoot it. It's called a pilot. A pilot is the first episode of a series. And, just to mitigate expectations, it's not even necessarily going to end up on TV. This is how competitive things are. Fox bought 7 shows, so 7 pilots are going to be shot. Each one of our shows costs about $4 million just for the one episode, okay? So I have to, when I found out my show got picked up, I had to hire literally 100 people. I have 100 employees that are wardrobe, hair, set decoration, production designer, director of photography, everyone. And the budget is like $4 million, and there are 7 shows going through that process right now. Mine is one of them. Of those 7, maybe 2 or 3 of them will end up on TV. So it's great news that I've gotten this far. It's a miracle to have gotten this far. Most shows don't. You know, of those 40, the 7 that got picked up, that's great. The others will never see the light of day. But not all of those 7 will necessarily end up on TV too. So it's basically, anytime you turn on your TV and you see a TV show, just understand what a miracle it is that it got that far. It's really hard, and most things don't get that far. So, I just wanted to say, you know, it might get shot, and it might just be like Fox decides this isn't really the tone of, you know, what our lineup is for our comedies right now. And then maybe the show can exist on Netflix or Hulu. It's such an interesting time in television right now because there are so many different outlets. And I think that's one of the interesting things too about how the landscape has changed so much. It's not just the networks, you know, the top few, Fox, ABC, NBC. There are so many different avenues now to consume media. And because of Netflix and Hulu and Amazon, there are so many different outlets for a variety of voices to be heard in the entertainment industry. So we'll see what happens with my show, but I'm writing a show where I play a 14-year-old boy. I know that sounds crazy. It is a little crazy, but that's what I love about it. It's a challenge. I wanted to create something that was different than everything I had seen. I wanted to tell a coming of age story about a teenager who's just trying to fit in. I'm, you know, in my mid-30s, so I can't exactly look like a little girl, but I weirdly can look like a little boy with the right wig and makeup. So I said, you know, I started developing this idea, and initially Fox wanted me to play the mom, obviously. And I was like, it would be so much more fun to play the kid. Why can't I play the kid? And we fought tooth and nail, and they were really scared. But to Fox's credit, they were like, you're the creator. We've invested in you as an artist. And at some point, you know, it comes down to artistic integrity. If this is what you want to do, we're going to let you try it. So they're going to let me try it. And it's been so much fun. You know, as scared as they were, it's been an exciting journey. We got the best director in television, or one of the most sought-after directors, this guy named Jason Weiner, read it, and he wasn't planning on making a comedy this year, but he really liked the story, and he was the guy who directed Modern Family, which was a huge hit for Fox. So he attached himself as the director, and he said, I'm really excited to be a part of telling this story of this young Iranian American boy growing up in Delaware, just trying to fit in. A lot of the characters in his family are based off of my own relatives, and
Not me.
not directly. You've inspired things on a tangential level, but yeah, I'm drawing from my own life and my own experiences and my own relatives, because I think that's the most authentic place a story can, you know, come from. And yeah, it's been really fun.
We are going to try to see who is who.
Hopefully I won't look like myself.
So what can you tell us about one of your favorite memories in SNL?
Oh, one of my favorite memories at Saturday Night Live. I guess 2 come to mind. One was, it's such a crazy place to work because, you know, before you get the job, one day you're a struggling comedian, and the next day you're on a TV show where you're meeting the most famous people on planet Earth day after day. And I guess one memory is or very early on when I started there, Paul McCartney from the Beatles was a guest. He was a musical guest. And it just blew my mind to see him because is there anyone more famous than him? And I just remember how sweet he was. There were interns that were just sitting, there's so many interns that work there they go get us coffee and food and any errands that need to be run. And he was just hanging out with the interns and trying to make them laugh. And it was just such a cool memory. They were so scared they just froze up and didn't say anything, so he was kind of talking to himself. But it was really sweet. That was a memory that stuck out. I think the most special memory for me is when my parents flew out the first time to see the show live, because it was just such a culmination of everything I had worked so hard for that they had been so supportive of. And I think it was the first time that they realized, okay, she's gonna be okay. You know, she's part of a family now that makes her really happy, that's her professional family. And it's a crazy thing to see live. A lot of my relatives that are here have come and seen the show, and there's nothing like it because it's live and things can go wrong, and there's an adrenaline at the show that's really unique. So amazing. I would say the time my parents first came, and they came every season after that, but that was really special.
Yes, I remember.
You were there.
Yes, it was an amazing, amazing experience. So
it's crazy, just tons of people walking by in different wigs. There's like a camel getting out of an elevator. It's in a high-rise building. There's just so much to take in. It's crazy.
Yeah. It feels like you are part of the set.
Yeah.
So you are in the audience, but it feels like you're part of the set. So I would like you to tell our younger audience, Iranian American girls and boys who aspire to become an actor or actress, what is your advice for them?
Okay. For anyone who wants to pursue this, two things. I think it's incredibly wonderful to support people that want to go into the arts. I was very lucky to have had that support. With that said, I also think it's important to be honest about the reality of the industry. Yes, I was very diligent. I worked really hard. I had trained very seriously. I, did theater all throughout high school. I never wanted to be famous ever. I just wanted to do my art. I think actually fame is a price you pay to be able to be a part of this industry. And I'm always hesitant when people's impulse to go into the industry is to be famous in any way. That's definitely going about it for the wrong reasons. But it is very competitive, and the reality is that even though I had been trained, I had done everything as I could to be as prepared as possible when my opportunity came, and I was generating my own material, a lot of it does come down to timing and luck. I studied theater in a program that was very competitive. They took 60 students from across the country. Out of 2,000 auditions, they had 60 of us. Of those 60 kids, myself and 3 other people are still in the industry as actors. The others, all of whom are exceptionally talented, at some point along the way decided, this is too crazy. It's either I don't need it enough, and I don't want it enough to put up with all the rejection and the uncertainty. And I think that's the most important question to ask yourself if you want to pursue it, is are you willing to put up with how unstable and unpredictable it can be? Because it can be. There were times where I was really not sure if it was going to work out, and I kept thinking, well, I could go to law school, and that was always in the back of my mind, but I loved it too much to give up, so I kept doing it. So every person is different, and I don't think it's I can't sit here and tell you, you really should love it this much. It's either, and if you do, you're gonna do it no matter what I say or what your parents say. So it's, I don't wanna give any false, expectations or of how difficult it is, because it is really difficult, and a lot of talented people just don't get their opportunity. With that said, it's interesting in our family, myself, my sister, and Elahe, who was speaking here earlier, her son is my cousin, Berhang Mir Hosseini, Bo Mir Hosseini. He is a really successful commercial director. He directs commercials and music videos. He flies all over the country. He was so diligent. He would pay to make commercials on his own before he had any representation. For almost a decade, he went after it, and he didn't give up. And finally, he got his big break, and now he's so successful. I'm sure there were times where, it might have been easy for him to quit, but he loved it so much he kept going. So when I first started feeling stuck as an actress, it was really scary for me to think of my entire career being in the hands of other people generating material that I then have to audition for and compete with 400 other girls. So that's why I started writing. It was an opportunity to create my own, chance to perform, and I wrote my one-woman show. I performed that, and Tina Fey saw it and recommended me for Saturday Night Live. So I wouldn't be here if I hadn't started writing. And writing is not for everyone, but if you're a writer-performer, that's my biggest advice I could give, is to find opportunities for yourself instead of just waiting for other people to hand them to you.
Thank you very much for flying in to have this conversation.
I just want to say I really feel so honored to be a part of this, and I think this organization is so wonderful. And so truly from the bottom of my heart, thank you for including me, and thank you guys all for coming. I hope you also feel like this is a really special and important cause. So thank you for having me. Thanks, guys. And thank you so much.
Rosalind Russell said that taking joy in is a woman's best cosmetic. And that's why I'm so grateful to Nasim and comedians like Nasim, who bring joy to the world with the work that they do. On another note, by the way, are you guys inspired? Thank you. I know I am. Before I introduce to you our next keynote speaker, I would like to share some statistics with you. It is estimated that 35% of women worldwide have experienced either physical and/or sexual intimate partner violence or sexual violence by a non-partner at some point within their lives. However, some national studies show that up to 70% of women have experienced physical and/or sexual violence from an intimate partner in their lifetime. Worldwide, more than 700 million women alive today were married as children, below 16 years of age. Of those women, more than 1 in 3, or some 250 million, were married before the age of 15. Child brides are often unable to effectively negotiate safe sex, leaving them vulnerable to early pregnancy as well as sexually transmitted diseases. The next segment of our program is about the role of men in gender equality. The silence and inaction of good men conspire against women. And our next speaker is a good man who has not only spoken out for women's rights, but has taken action. I'm a huge fan of his. He's all over my Facebook. His name is Dr. Jackson Katz. He is an American educator, author, filmmaker, and cultural theorist who is internationally renowned for his pioneering scholarship and activism on issues of gender and violence. In 1993, he co-founded Mentors in Violence Prevention, MVP, one of the longest running and most widely influential sexual assault and relationship abuse prevention programs in high schools, colleges, sports culture, and the military in North America and beyond. He also has over 2 million views on his TED Talks. I just watched it a few days ago. He's amazing. It is our great privilege to welcome Dr. Katz to the stage. Please give him a round, warm welcome.
Thank you very much, Sheila. And before I begin, I also want to thank Dr. Parisa Rifat over here. My friend and colleague who is my connecting point to ICWIN, and I appreciate the honor, the opportunity, and the honor of being here today. Especially, I have to say, as a man, being in this context, and International Women's Day being, what is it, tomorrow? I mean, today. 2 days, I'm sorry. I'm a little confused. I just got in literally from Hong Kong last night, and so I'm trying to figure out what time zone I'm in, so it's 2 days from now. In Hong Kong, it's tomorrow. Right, thank you. So anyways, as a man, I'm honored to be in the position of presenting some thoughts and ideas to you in the context of International Women's Day. And in that context, I want to say a couple things. One is women's leadership has been unbelievable and transformative all over the world in the field of sexual assault and domestic violence, and obviously in gender equality promotion more generally, but I'm going to focus on the issues of men's violence against women that Sheila highlighted just a moment ago. Women's leadership has been incredibly transformative. You know, until the 1970s, there was no such thing as a rape crisis center. When women were raped, which, by the way, men were raping women for thousands and thousands of years before the 1970s, there weren't services for victims and survivors, there weren't programs, there weren't 800 numbers to call. Lots of countries in the world today don't even have services, organized services for victims and survivors of rape and sexual violence, even as we speak, as you know. But brave, impassioned, smart, committed women in a multicultural, multi-ethnic sense built services for victims and survivors. This is, again, starting in the 1970s all over the world at different levels, and provided incredible services. That it's an ongoing process. It's not a done deal, but it's an ongoing process. They also began to reform the laws to hold perpetrators accountable in ways that perpetrators had not been accountable before. And even in the United States, rape was legal within marriage in some states until as recently as 30 years ago. And as we speak today in the world, hundreds of millions of people live in countries where rape is still legal within marriage. But women, and again, in an organized fashion, sometimes with strong male allies, not enough of us, but some, were able to change the laws and hold perpetrators accountable and change the social customs and norms that somehow perpetrated the rape and sexual violence. Domestic violence, men had been abusing women and children for thousands of years. But it wasn't until the 1970s that there was such a thing as a battered women's program and 800 numbers and trained counselors, whether it's in communities or on college and university campuses, or training police to deal more sensitively with and more effectively and professionally with victims as they arrived at scenes of domestic violence calls and such like that. And this is, again, an ongoing process, but none of it existed until the 1970s, until women's leadership made it all possible. And by the way, a lot of women who had done that work, especially in the 70s, but even until the present moment, a lot of those women would get called, male bashers. They're anti-male. They have an agenda against men. They hate men. And they weren't given the respect and the gratitude that they deserved for doing what they did. Because you know what? The services and the cultural and social changes that those women pioneered didn't just help women and girls. I mean, yes, they did help women and girls, but they didn't just help women and girls. Because men and boys' lives have been profoundly affected in a positive way by women's leadership and advocacy and all of this. And I just want to share with you 2 examples of how men's lives have benefited, because so often in the public discourse about issues about domestic and sexual violence, it's seen in this kind of simple-minded way of like, women have benefited, yeah, but men haven't benefited that much. And yeah, there's been some services for victims and survivors, and yeah, offenders have been held accountable, but men haven't benefited that much. It's really about a women's concern. which I have a big problem with. I think that's a complete misconception. Because again, let me just restate this. Men's lives have been profoundly affected in a positive way by women's leadership in these areas. And I'm just going to give you two examples. One has to do with children and the effects of domestic violence on children, right? So we've had a conversation in the United States and other parts of the world increasingly over the past 20 years about the effects of DV on children, right? So we talk about all the children growing up in homes where their father abuses their mother, where their mother's boyfriend is abusive to their mother. Sometimes the mother's the abuser, but more than likely the father, and the man. And we know that in over 50% of cases when a man's abusive to a woman and there are children involved, he's also abusive to the children. But so there's a term we've used in the field to describe this situation. It's called children who witness domestic violence. And sometimes people shorthand it to say children who witness. Well, this is a term that I don't use and I don't like. You know why? Because if you're a 7-year-old kid cowering in the closet as your father or another man is raging against your mother, you're not a witness, you're a victim. You're not observing something happening to somebody else. You're experiencing it happening to yourself. The experience of trauma and victimization is much more profound than is suggested by the passive word witness. Well, guess what? The category of children who are being traumatized by an adult man's violence in their family, that category of children includes both girls and boys. Do you have any idea how many boys in the juvenile system in the state of California are in the system today as we speak, in part because their life journey started out as traumatized boys in their families of origin, and they didn't make good choices, and they externalized their pain, and maybe they hurt other people, and it's a mess. It's a mess. Do you have any idea how many men in the prison system in the United States of America are in prison because, in part, their life journey started out as little boys? And by the way, the prisons are filled with men who are chronologically adult men, but they're armed up, you know, they're like kind of, but underneath is a little boy who is a little vulnerable little boy who in many ways made, in some cases, bad choices in response to what was done to them when they were children. And by the way, one of the reasons why I'm so outraged, and I know a lot of you share this outrage with me, that the women who do the kind of work that I've been talking about get shouted down as anti-male, is I don't, like I said, I don't buy that for a second. I think it's an act of solidarity, not just with girls and women, but with boys and men. And you know, so much of the bad behavior committed by boys and men in the world has its roots in the childhood of boys and men. So much of the bad behavior in the world. I mean, boys who have been abused are something like 10 times more likely to abuse others than boys who haven't been abused. It's not quantum physics. It's really not that complicated. And I'm not, by the way, defending bad behavior by boys and men if what they did to get incarcerated or get in trouble was antisocial behavior against other people. I'm not defending it. I'm trying to understand it. In the 21st century, if we want to be more sophisticated about how to prevent violence, which is another way of saying prevent men's violence, because the overwhelming majority of violence in the world is done by men. If we want to understand how to prevent men's violence, we have to understand not just violence done to boys, but violence done against boys. If you want a bumper sticker slogan to encapsulate what I've been talking about, there's no peace on the streets if there's no peace at home. There's no peace in the community if there's no peace in the family. There's no peace in the world if there's no peace at home. And by the way, this isn't just in the United States of America, it's all over the world. It's all over the world because boys and men are acting out in violent and abusive ways all over the world, in part because they've grown up in a culture which teaches them that being a man means defending yourself and physically dominating other people, and part of that is a response to the feeling of victimization when you're young and can't defend yourself. The second key aspect of women's leadership that has helped boys and men that I think is worth highlighting has to do with male sexual victimization. Because we're increasingly talking about men as the victims of sexual violence in a way that we weren't even when I was young. It's an incredible change that's happening globally. The movie Spotlight, some of you know, just won the Oscar for Best Picture. It highlights the Boston Globe's investigation of the Catholic Church sexual abuse scandal, the epicenter of which was in my home city of Boston, which then became a global scandal that is ongoing to this day, right? So it's incredible we're having these conversations now. Men have been sexually assaulting other men and boys for thousands and thousands of years, but we're only now talking about it. And why are we talking about it? And it's a healthy thing that we're talking about it. But why are we talking about it? Because of the feminist-led women's domestic and sexual violence movements in the 1970s that created the context for having the conversation, for changing the notion of victim to survivor. In other words, I'm going to reclaim the narrative of my life. I'm no longer going to be silenced into, shamed into silence because I'm not the one who should be ashamed. The perpetrator should be ashamed, and I'm going to reclaim the narrative of my life. That's a paradigm that was created and a shift that was created by women's leadership in the domestic and sexual violence movements. But how often do you hear feminist women being credited for an increasing attention to the needs of male sexual assault victims? You rarely hear it. So one of the things that I think men need to do when we have the microphone and the platform is to honor women's leadership and express gratitude for women's leadership and say that we need more men who stand with women, not against them, and support them, not shout them down, because we're all in this together. Now, one other piece of sort of conceptual shift that I would like to share with you. A lot of people see the issues of gender-based violence as, again, women's issues that some good men help out with, right? And I'm here to say that's a problematic frame. I don't accept the premise. These aren't women's issues that good men help out with. I would in fact argue that these are men's issues, first and foremost. Yes, women have been at the leadership of all of this, and women will continue to be. But at the same time, the very act of calling these issues women's issues keeps a lot of men immobile and silent. Because a lot of men think, well, it's really for the women. Yes, I'm going to support them. I'm going to come to the ICWIN event, and I appreciate that. That's a good thing. I'm going to support my wife or other women in my life, my daughters. I'm going to write a check for this program or that program. Yes, it's an important thing. But we don't really see it as our issue, and that has to change. And a big part of my work is trying to say, yes, it is our issue, guys. And then you know what? It's not just our issue. It's a leadership issue for men. It's a leadership issue for men. What does that mean? Well, it means that if you're a man in the 21st century and you're in a position of leadership, however you define that, it could be in your family, your faith community, in politics, business, education, sports, media. We can broadly define leadership. However it is that you're in a position of leadership, you need to understand the issues of domestic violence and sexual assault and sexual abuse and sexual harassment and how those all connect with each other and with other issues like gay bashing and bullying and alcohol and drug problems and the transmission of HIV and gang violence and all kinds of other intersected and interconnected issues, because they're all intersected and interconnected, and sophisticated leaders in the 21st century make those kind of connections. So you need to figure out and learn and be taught some of this stuff, and then you need to figure out, as a leader, what you can do within your sphere of influence to make it so that it doesn't happen. Not because you're a nice guy helping out the women, but because that's what we expect of our leaders in the 21st century. And if we could get to the place where men in positions of leadership knew that they would be held accountable for addressing these issues, and young men who are aspiring to positions of leadership coming up through the ranks knew that part of their portfolio was going to be they needed to have education about and experience with this subject matter. If we could make that shift into understanding this as a fundamental leadership issue in the 21st century, the changes that are going to happen would happen much more quickly. Because despite women's incredible progress over the past 200 years, progress which has accelerated over the past 50 years around the world, men still hold the vast majority of social, political, and economic power globally, locally, and every other place. Let's not kid ourselves. And if men in positions of power can continue to not address these issues, to not use their platform of influence, to not be leaders, the changes that have to happen are going to take an awful lot longer. And so this is partly a message directly aimed at the men in this room, but the men who are not in this room as well. We need a whole lot more from men. Now, one of the reasons why so few, men do take a stand is because it takes a certain degree of self-confidence on the part of a man to start speaking up and challenging other men. And a lot of men are worried about what other men are going to think of them if they take these kinds of stances. Which is, by the way, why it's a leadership issue. Because if it was easy, then everybody would have done it already, and we wouldn't even I wouldn't be standing here talking about it. Because leadership means taking risks, by definition, doesn't it? Now, one of the approaches that I developed in my work, in the sports culture, in the military culture, and all over everywhere really, but it's something that's caught on to the point that Vice President Biden, during the Oscar ceremony, referenced some of my ideas without crediting me. But I appreciate it. We got high fives in my house when the vice president said we need people to intervene, speak up. Remember he said this about sexual assault? This is based on my and my colleagues' work. Started 23 years ago back in Boston, where we pioneered this approach called the bystander approach to gender violence and gay bashing prevention. And the heart of it, I'm just going to share with you the heart of it, because I think there's a takeaway for everybody in this approach. The heart of the bystander approach is that instead of seeing gender violence and other forms of interpersonal abuse, including bullying and gay bashing and other forms of violence and harassment, instead of seeing it as in the perpetrator-victim binary fashion, in other words, focusing on the person who's doing it and the person who's experiencing it, the bystander approach looks at everybody else in the peer culture. So, in other words, everybody around the kid or the person doing the abusive behavior, and everybody around the kid or person experiencing the abusive behavior has a role to play. So what that means in the sexual assault and domestic violence area is guys who themselves are not physically or sexually abusive towards women or men, but we have peer cultures, we have friends, we have family members, we have teammates, we have colleagues and coworkers who in various ways are acting out or expressing attitudes and beliefs that are underpinning abusive behaviors. Maybe we don't see them beating up their girlfriend right in front of us, but they make all kinds of nasty comments about women and degrading comments about women. What do? We're not the one making the comments, but we're the friend, we're the teammate, we're the colleague sitting next to the person. We're having a drink after work with a colleague who makes some really inappropriate sexualizing comment about a woman who's now joined the office. What do we say? And if we don't say something, what are we saying? And how do we interrupt and challenge sexism and, of course, abuse, doing it safely and smartly? Because I'm not saying this is a superhero model. We're suggesting, jump in and save the day. It's not like that. But it's rather based on a fundamental idea of social justice, which is if you're in a position, especially if you have some privilege, if you're in a position to interrupt the illegitimate enactment of power and privilege or abuse, and you don't, you remain silent, then your silence is a form of consent and complicity in the enactment of that abuse. Period. End of sentence. That's true. Thank you. Thank you. That's true, by the way, of white people. If you're a white person and you're in the presence of other white people who are making racist comments or acting out in racist ways and you don't challenge and interrupt their racism, then in a certain sense, aren't you giving consent to that racism? And if you're a heterosexual person and you yourself don't harass or abuse people of varying sexual orientations, but you're like, I'm not going to get involved, in a sense, isn't your silence a form of consent to their heterosexism? Well, if you're a man and you're in a position to challenge and interrupt other men's sexism and you don't, in a sense, isn't your silence a form of consent and complicity in their sexism? And doesn't sexism as an ideological sort of belief system underpin the worldwide tragedy of men's violence against women? Are we naive to think that somehow men who assault women are coming out of nowhere, they're just crawling out of the swamp and committing evil acts, as opposed to they're the sort of the front edge of a belief system that men should be in control of women and men should be able to dominate women because that's the natural order or God ordained it or some other sort of ideological belief system that maintains inequality? Are we not that naive? I don't think we are that naive. And can I say, I know I might be going a little bit off the menu with what I'm about to say, but I have a book coming out, I have to tell you. And it's coming out in like 3 weeks. And I know you're going to be talking politics later. It's called Man Enough, Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, and the Politics of Presidential Masculinity. And as I was just talking, I realized that I am a white person and I'm on stage with a microphone and I need to say that Donald Trump's racism is out of control and totally unacceptable in a democratic society. And we can't hear too many white people saying that out loud, that his racism and his bigotry is totally unacceptable, in addition to his incredible misogyny and sexism. It's an embarrassing moment in American political history. And we need more men and white people to start saying this loudly, don't you think? Okay, so thank you for agreeing with that. So I'm going to close by finally saying again, women's leadership is unquestioned and will continue to be at the forefront of all of this. And women's leadership has been and will continue to be transformative. And by the way, it's one of the great hopes for our species is women's leadership. I don't think this is just one of many issues. In fact, I devoted my life to this back when I was 19-year-old, because I realized, I think I got early on how big a deal gender equality was for all the other things that I cared about in the world. Gender equality is one of the fundamental unmet needs of the human species, and it's one of the ways that our species is going to thrive and survive. And certainly in the 21st century, it's one of the great goals is gender equality. So I'm supportive of, obviously, of women's leadership. I'm proud to be part of this work. And I want to say finally to the men, if you haven't yet been a man who takes the risks that I'm talking about, if you haven't been a man who's publicly, not just privately, but publicly within your sphere, spoken up about this issue, I suggest take the first step. It gets easier each time. Sometimes guys will say things like, oh, he went to some talk and all of a sudden he's Mr. Sensitive. Or they'll say like, oh yeah, his wife is a really strong woman and he finally, relented, or, and who's wearing the pants in that relationship. This kind of things that other men who are threatened by women's strength and men's support for women's strength will say to you. But if you know that you're saying and doing the right thing, it doesn't really matter what other guys are saying. You think I care that I get called the names that I get called? I don't care, because I know what I'm doing is right. And I know that I'm proud of what I'm doing. And I hope you are too. Thank you very much.
I had tears in my eyes. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you. It's beautiful. Women's equality is a game changer for women and girls and for humanity, is what I just remembered. As I listened to Dr. Katz, I was reminded of a quote by Mahatma Gandhi that says, of all the evils for which man has made himself responsible, none is so degrading, so shocking, so brutal as his abuse of half of humanity, the female sex. It's actually... And I want to say, this is going kind of off the track of what we're doing, but I'm planning on creating a new play about this that is a work in progress. But it's only in modern times, and by modern times I'm talking about only about 5,000 years, that there's been such an inequality, such an imbalance among men and women. And when you look at archaeological records, and especially in 2013, so much more was found, that for thousands of years, somewhere between 18,000 to 30,000 years, there were so many societies all over the earth where men and women lived in equality. They were goddess-worshipping societies. They all had different goddesses, but they lived in equality, worked side by side, and loved one another. They had plumbing. They had science. They had astronomy. And it was because of these fringe societies that lived in very arid, uncomfortable lands that saw this beautiful place, and they also had agriculture already. And they came in and they destroyed and they killed all the men, killed all the women, and only saved the young virgins that they married some of them and sold the rest into slavery. And this is unfortunately a fact. So so it's not part of the human existence that there has to be an imbalance. It's just an imbalance that has been happening for a few thousand years, and we're going to stop that now with your help. Margaret Thatcher once said that any woman who understands the problems of running a home will be nearer to understanding the problems of running a country. The next conversation is about a very time-sensitive topic, election, and the role of women and how it impacts women. This section is going to be moderated by Ms. Manizeh Badi'i. She is an assistant professor of psychology at California State University, San Bernardino. She earned her MA in counseling from St. Edward's University, and she received her PhD in counseling psychology from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. Her research interests are focused on social justice and diversity, and they include women's empowerment, microaggressions, and mental health and sexual assault prevention. So she's our moderator. I'd like to also introduce our speakers to you. Our speakers are going to be Ms. Sara Amir, She's also known in Persian as Sayyare Amir Ebrahimi. She was the 1998 Green Party candidate for Lieutenant Governor of California. She also ran for California State Assembly in 2000. She was the spokeswoman for the Green Party of California for 4 years. She was also appointed to the Affirmative Action and Equal Opportunity Committee, ensuring the state's compliance with affirmative action law and with a focus on women. And our other speaker, oh good, we do have 3 chairs. Our other speaker is Ms. Linda Zamora. She is the 2016 prospective candidate for Garden Grove Council member. She's a professional, judicial, and medical interpreter. Her activities in the community include Commissioner, Planning Commission since 2013, Vice Chair, Interpreters Guild of America since 2014, co-chair of Garden Grove Chamber of Commerce Government Affairs Committee since 2015, and CASA, Hispanic Advisory Council, since 2015. Please give them a round of welcoming applause.
This discussion is intended to highlight the issue of women's participation in politics. Data from the UN in the most recent report, 2010, and the World Economic Forum in 2013 demonstrate that around the world, women are still severely underrepresented in politics. The US is no exception. However, some women break through the barriers and become political leaders. Sara and Linda are 2 of these exceptional women, and that's why I'm delighted to speak with both of you today. So I will start with the first question. In the US, women represent 19.4% of the Congress. Of the 104 women serving in the 114th US Congress, 33 or only 31% of them are women of color, 30 Democrats and 3 Republicans. Only about 5% of state legislatures are women of color, 365 Democrats and 30 Republicans. So I want to turn it over to Sara and Linda and ask, why do you think this is the case? In other words, what are the barriers of women in general and women of color in participation of electoral politics?
Thank you so much for this event. Before I start, I just want to, after hearing Dr. Katz, I want to turn into my women's friend and tell him, next time they call me bossy, I'm going to tell them they're very sexist. Okay? Don't call a woman who has leadership bossy anymore. Thank you, Manager John. Well, there are a lot of barriers to women's representation. One of them, in the US especially, is election system. The way winner-take-all system that, one person wins, the rest are losers. And also, the way the two-party system, two-party majority system, and the third parties usually, they are very much neglected, and they cannot form coalitions. The way the system here doesn't really encourage forming coalitions. What do I mean by winner-take-all? There are some countries that have a lot of women representation, and they have proportional representation. That means that in 2010, when I ran for state assembly with the Green Party, and I got 10% of the vote, then I could go to a state assembly in other countries that have that proportional representation. The other things that are really preventing women to become leaders and take part in elections is that women, when you ask them to run for elections, immediately they say, oh no, I'm not qualified to run for election. We are very hard on ourselves. We really take it hard. You ask a man you approach them from any party and say, would you like to run for office? And say, what office? But women immediately say, no, I'm not qualified. And that's why women tend to start from the bottom, tend to start from local and then go up. But a lot of men, they just run for state and federal offices. So these are some of them. I know Linda has a lot to say too.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. It's actually my pleasure to be here and to represent women, and especially women in the Latino community who have a lot of barriers in getting into politics. And as a woman of color, I think that one of the barriers is financial assistance, that many times women of color come from backgrounds where there's not a lot of economic success. And we have to fight our way through college, and we have to demonstrate that we are worthy of what we're doing. So a lot of other times, however, it's a little bit more personal, where in my family in particular, my parents did not necessarily believe that a woman should be educated. They brought up all of the women in my family. There's 4 women siblings, 4 girls and 6 boys, and the women were brought up to believe that we were to be married and have kids, and that our husbands will take care of us. So I, from the very beginning, was a rebel, and I felt that I did not want a man to take care of me. I could do it myself, and if I was not going to be given the opportunity, I would find the opportunity on my own. So I have had to break barriers from very close, tight scenarios. Challenging your parents is not something that you are brought up to do. You're brought up to respect your parents, to not challenge what they teach you. And breaking that barrier in and of itself was actually a difficult one for me, but I felt that my calling was to do something other than what they were teaching me. So between challenging my parents, putting myself through college, which took me 10 years, but I finished. And from there, I continued breaking barriers in my city alone, which incorporated in 1957. That's Garden Grove, California. Only 3 women have served on council. So I am setting myself a goal to say I'm going to be the 4th woman, and I will be the first woman of color to serve on council.
So in light of these barriers, for both of you, what motivated you to run for office? I know you alluded to it a little bit, Linda, in your answer, but what were some motivating factors for both of you?
My motivation was mostly because I really care about the environment. I work for the California Environmental Protection Agency, and that I'm an environmental engineer, and also I was involved in feminist movement. So these issues were really important to me. When the Green Party approached me, they saw me speaking about it was a workshop that I was speaking about environmental issues. They approached me, and we went through a lot to get to that. I say that, sure, I will run for lieutenant governor. It wasn't the goal for me wasn't to get elected as a lieutenant governor. I didn't even know what lieutenant governor was doing. You know, they don't do anything really. They participate. My work is much harder than a lieutenant governor job, but I saw that as a tool to bring out the issues. It gave me kind of the ability to participate in debates, to participate on panel discussions, on TV, and really it gave me a tool to bring out the issues. And it was wonderful, and it was one of the most valuable experiences that I've ever had in my life, because you're out there, you're speaking with people, and people are very critical. It makes you tough because you have to respond to all the people who criticize you. I remember one time I was talking about healthcare and environmental protection, and why healthcare is a right for everyone. And then this woman said, if you don't like it, go back to your country. And I said, excuse me, I'm not a guest here. This is my country. And so you're out there and you're being exposed to all these, harsh criticism, insults, and all that. It makes you a better person at the end.
Thank you. So for me, my inspiration comes from a lot of sources. Again, one of 10 children, my father actually ran for mayor when I was a child, and he didn't win. He was a treasurer of the water district, and I think somehow I was the only one who inherited that political gene. So now, to his disappointment, that a boy didn't, right? So now I feel that I need to do it. I need to do it to follow his dream in a certain way, to develop my dream and to follow my dream, and to be the voice of women who feel that they cannot be candidates or they cannot serve as political and elected leaders, which if any one of you is considering it, please do it. You can do it. You are already an amazing person just by the simple fact of being a woman. You do a lot of things. You're a mother, you work, you are a sister. You juggle so many things between work and home and career, profession, hobbies. You do so many things that another source of inspiration for me is to serve as somebody who, if anyone looks at me, and not an egotistical thing, but more for somebody to say, if she can do it, I can do it. Rather than what Sara was saying, when a woman is asked to run for office, you give her a list of things, and if it's 10 things and she only has 9 qualifications, she'll say, I'm sorry, I can't. And you ask a man, and the man has 1, and he'll say, where do I sign up? So women, I think from the perspective of a woman, because we have so many responsibilities and we juggle so many things, when it comes to making decisions, we look at a broader perspective. We look at, if I make this decision, how is it going to affect my household, my children, my mother, my father, my siblings, my neighbors? And I don't know, because we make those decisions all the time when it comes to budgeting for our meals, our households, or anything else that we're doing. And so my source of inspiration is, it's also the fact that there's just not enough women representing women, and that many decisions are being made on our behalf without taking our opinion in consideration, and that's just wrong. So we need to step up, we need to do something, and I am taking that step forward to say, I'm gonna do it, and I know it will be difficult. The criticism and the rejection will be there, but I'm up for the challenge.
Thank you to both of you. My final question is, what are some of the challenges? I know you both mentioned some challenges you faced as women of color, and also if there's any advice you have for women of color seeking political positions.
I know a lot of women who are leaders in their communities and very capable of running for offices. So why not? Why not running for offices, for any board of education, local offices, state offices? Just do it. Do it, and you'll be a when you get experience, then you can run for offices to win. First, get the experience. Run for any office that you think you're interested. The biggest challenge for me was fundraising. I had to ask my friends, families, everybody, just give me some money, and I've never asked that before. It was really hard. So finally, during the campaign, I raised about $100,000, which was quite a bit, but but it was the hardest. I had to call people and say, give me money. And still I have a hard time with that. I would hire somebody to do that for me, but not do it myself. It's really, really hard.
So for me, the challenges that I face, there's a few of them. Being a woman of color is one, but I have to say that I am surrounding myself with people who truly believe in what I'm doing and feel that I am just a human being trying to make things better. So they believe in me and they are supporting me. I always feel, I question myself thinking, am I doing the right thing? Am I the right person? Or is there somebody better out there who can do a better job? But immediately I say, hell no, I can do it. I have been able to manage my finances really well. I'm a relatively successful small businesswoman. I am a balanced individual despite my dysfunctional family. I can do it. And I will surround myself with people who are a lot smarter than I am, and then I'll look very well polished. And like Sara said, it's very difficult to pick up the phone and ask somebody for money, but I am overcoming that challenge. At some point I was thinking, people giving me money, oh my God, it's so difficult. I don't see it that way anymore. I now see it as they're not giving me money. They are investing in me because they want me as their representative. So now I am eager to call people and say, this is who I am. This is what I'm going to do for you. And I need your support. If you don't support me, who knows who you're going to end up with? And do you want any lunatic up there, or do you want me? So, but again, I have to surround myself. As a woman, I am vulnerable. I do question a lot of things, but I focus on surrounding myself with people who support me, who believe in me, and who will give me that push to keep going.
Thank you so much to both of you for your comments today. I personally feel very inspired and empowered by everything you shared. And I think these two brilliant women just make it clear that women's leadership can enrich many of our current political systems, and they also show us what the future can be. I hope you'll join me in helping to create that future in any small way that each of us can. Thanks again for coming, and I hope you enjoyed this. Happy International Women's Day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. So inspiring. I love that so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. The most common way people give up their power is by thinking that they don't have any. And so we as women need to understand that we do have power. And Rosa Parks once said that knowing what must be done does away with fear. So go out there, ladies, and raise money for your campaigns. We need you. Next, we have an exciting news about Long Beach to share with you. So I'm going to ask Miss Nazanin Amani to come back on the stage again. She's a longtime resident of Long Beach and a member of ICWIN Steering Committee, and she's going to share her report.
So CEDA. CEDA is the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. This important human treaty, which we call it Bill of Rights for Women, was passed in 1979 in United Nations. And basically, all the countries in United Nations have ratified this except 6 countries. And unfortunately, 2 of the 6 countries are Iran and US. Aren't they allies in many things? So there we go. Okay, so Women Intercultural Network is leading women NGO and civil society organizing of implementing municipal CEDAW ordinances with Cities for CEDAW campaign. So the whole idea is that United States Senate has not ratified this important treaty after 37 years. So Marilyn, our founder, she basically pitched for a campaign of Cities for CEDAW. She said, we will take this to every city to make the cities to adopt this resolution or ordinance so that we are going to push the Senate to adopt this important human treaty. How wonderful is that? Thank you, Marilyn. So this is, and remember, United States has not ratified CEDAW. So the importance of this is that Marilyn, representing the Cities for CEDAW campaign from the United States, was given the chance to present this in UN, although it wasn't ratified by the United States. And another wonderful thing Marilyn did. So next, the important news is that this past March 1st, meaning Tuesday, we took this to the city of Long Beach, and it passed by 9-0 in city of Long Beach. So I would like everybody who was present at the city of Long Beach, please stand up. Thank you very much. Thank you. And now we are going to watch a very short clip of what happened in the city of Long Beach.
In honor of International Women's Day, a global day celebrating the social, economic, cultural, and political achievements of women, the day also marks a call to action for accelerating gender parity. To celebrate International Women's Day, my female colleagues and I are requesting the City Attorney to draft a resolution in support of the Convention of the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, also known as CEDAW. CEDAW is a landmark international agreement that affirms principles of fundamental human rights and equity for women around the world. In December of 1979, the United Nations General Assembly adopted CEDAW, and in 1998, San Francisco became the first municipality in the world to adopt a local ordinance. CEDAW offers countries a blueprint to promote basic rights and to open opportunities for women and girls in all areas of society. In addition to asking the Long Beach City Council to support CEDAW, we are also requesting the city manager to identify a city commission that can partner with California State University Long Beach to complete a gender analysis study of Long Beach. After the gender analysis study is completed, our selected city commission should examine policy reforms as outlined by the study and consistent with CEDAW in order to make recommendations to the City Council for the implementation of any policy reforms or additional programming that are consistent with the goals of CEDAW. This very important legislation was brought to our office by our resident Nazanin Amani. Nazanin, thank you, Nazanin, is a member of the Women's Intercultural Network and is leading the campaign of Cities for CEDAW. I hope the City Council will support CEDAW and our work to ensure women and girls are treated equally in all areas of our society. I'd like to ask all of the women and men who are here tonight in support of this item to stand and be recognized.
Dear Honorable Mayor Robert Garcia and council members, I heard about Cities for CEDAW campaign 2 years ago when I became member of Women Intercultural Network through my sister Elahe Amani, who is also in the audience, who is the women's rights and human rights activist.
Getting acquainted with SIDA, I was surprised to find out that US Constitution does not grant equal rights for women. I was even more surprised to find out that US and Iran are 2 of the 6 countries in the world who have not ratified this human rights treaty. Well, I couldn't do much about Iran, not yet at least. But I took the initiative to bring this to my district councilwoman, Susie Price's attention, who brought us here today. Thank you very much, Susie. One of the many benefits of SIDA is raising awareness about many things, including domestic violence, and moving forward to minimize it. And this is especially important in Long Beach, since we all know our city is struggling with homeless issues. And according to a recent report from Good Shepherd Shelter, domestic violence accounts for 21% of homelessness. I appreciate your time and vote in favor of this resolution in advance. And I also want to thank everybody in the audience who have taken the time from their busy life to be here to support SIDA resolution. I leave you with this note that the civility of a society is measured by the way they're treating their women. Thank you.
Absolutely. My name is Zoe Nicholson. I live at 846 Coronado and become a SIDA city. And I am here to ask you to lift the women of Long Beach and hear this global heartbeat to be a SIDA city. Your mother wants you to do this. The 4 grandmothers of all directions want you to do this. Please stand with me in the clear light of day and say you have protected their daughters worldwide and become a city of SIDA. Thank you.
I'm here on behalf of Women Intercultural Network, which is national sponsor of Cities for SIDA campaign. Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, adopted in 1979 by the UN General Assembly. This international treaty is often described as the International Bill of Rights for Women. The 6 UN member states that have not ratified or acceded to the convention are Iran, Palau, Somalia, Sudan, Togo, and United States. Actually, US has signed but never ratified SIDA.
Motion carries.
So right before we end, I would like everybody who is not from Long Beach, please stand up. And guess what? Your city is going to be next. Thank you. Yay!
Well, we have been informed, we've been inspired, and hopefully you've been engaged, but now it is time, as I promised in the beginning, to get excited. We have an incredible, extraordinary musician and artist with us today, Miss Mamak Khadem. Mamak Khadem was the 2015 Transglobal World Music Top 20 chart listed artist. The Los Angeles Times called her one of the wonders of world trans music. Ms. Khadem has invited the band Adaawe here. They are an energetic, empowering percussionist band. They're all women. And by the way, I don't know if you know, but for centuries, percussion has been the only voice of women in many countries. So they are with us today, and Ms. Mamak Khadem has also invited Ms. Mahsa Ghasemi, who is here from Toronto, and she is a talented musician. She's going to be playing the cello. So I'm going to reintroduce them as soon as we get this screen out of the way. 1 second for our technical difficulties. Gentlemen, give it up for Mamak Khadem and the group Adaawe.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure and honor to be here among such beautiful friends today, celebrating the International Women's Day with all of you. And next, we're going to be doing some songs from Adaawe. My sisters, who I've known for many, many years, and they're wonderful, and they have not only they do their beautiful music, but they're actually these women who are empowering one another, and it just it's amazing that it goes beyond music, and that gives it a lot of meaning, and that gives it a lot of good energy. So please welcome my friends from the group Adaawe.
Moment, we honor, we reflect, and we respect. Generations and generations and generations of women come before us. The struggle trotting through for us. Generations and generations. Forward, we strive because of them. We are here because of the power, because of the love for us. In the water, soon come your in the water, children, children. Gonna trouble shall be God to me. God's gonna trouble the water. He's gonna trouble. God's gonna trouble the water. Come on, children. God's gonna trouble the water. He's gonna trouble the water. God's gonna trouble. Well, you see the people, they're dressed in red. God's gonna trouble that water. There must be the children that Moses said. God's gonna trouble that water. God's gonna trouble the water. God's gonna trouble the water. God's gonna trouble the water.
Qasemi on cello. Adaawe, my sisters on stage. They bring their, thank you for sharing your beautiful energy. I've always been so touched. And thank you for inviting us. And all the ladies that have been working so hard to make this event happen.
What you do, ladies and gentlemen, makes a difference. And you have to decide what kind of a difference you want to make. So, the world has witnessed significant moments, significant improvements regarding the rights of women and girls, equality and emancipation, with more women in the boardroom, increased visibility, greater equality in legislative rights, and more. Despite this, inequalities in poverty, healthcare, education, and violence mean discrimination against women is still ingrained in the cultures around the world. We encourage you to stay involved, become a member, share your ideas, volunteer, build network, get informed, inspire others. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and you can also contact ICWIN by email. It's ICWIN, that's Iranian Circle of Women's Intercultural Network, at winaction.org. I'd like to acknowledge our sponsors and volunteers at this point. Our sponsor is Ms. Fariba Boghrati. Thank you. Please come to the stage. Dr. Parisa Rafat, please come to the stage. Dr. Leila Zamiri. Our volunteers, graphic designers Marjan Mominan, Sara Taban. Please come to the stage. Organizing members, Ms. Afsane Jalali, Shohre Esfandiari, Parvane Keyan, Minu Sharifian, Parniaz Ramezani, Mahtab, Yusi, Seper. You see, it takes a village to support women. All the artists and authors for taking part of this program, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Please come on stage. And all sponsoring organizations who are present today. IAW, Iranian American Women Foundation. Thank you. You guys are rock stars. AAUW of Palos Verdes. AAUW, LACIC, IPAA, that's the Iranian Persian American Associates of Greater Long Beach. Social Justice Council of Unitarian Universalist Church of Long Beach, and now National Organization of Women. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us today. Give these wonderful people a hand. Thank you for everything you do, Marilyn. Thank you so much. Come on up, ladies. Come on up, artist Miss Shala Bebe. Come on up. Thank you so much. Elahe John, please come up. Nazanin. Thank you so much. Miss Sudi, please come up. We call Sudi Khame. She's a khale and an Amir. Come on up. Thank you so much. You guys have been great. You've been an amazing audience. Please keep it up.